What's going on, everybody? It's your man, Cleveland Terry, and today we're going to be reviewing the newly released, or at least in the last few months released, QSC KC12 column array system. Now, they've been out, at least they were announced at NAMM. People have had them in their hands. You've seen tons of reviews, but a lot of people have been asking me to do a review on these speakers. I have had, I guess, a polarizing view on column arrays because I made a point to say that they should be used in the right application. And I did use the QSC speaker as part of my story, but apparently people thought that I was just picking on QSC. Now, we're going to go through the whole thing. I'm going to tell you what I like, what I don't like about the system, and then you can form your own judgment. All right? You want to talk about it? Let's go. All right, let's get to it, guys. If you're new here, this is what we do. We talk about all things DJ related, whether that be DJ reviews, DJ 101, DJ tech, or just how-tos, just life of a DJ. We talk about it all on this show. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, hit that like button and make sure you hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you know the next time that I post new content. Speaking of new content, I have been on hiatus for the last couple of months. I have not been putting out new content because I've been really busy with my own gigs. Everybody knows, or if you don't know, I run a very large multi-op DJ company, DJ production company in Southern California, and I have just been so busy. I'm going to try to make it a point. I want to put out one video a week, at least through the next month, because I got lots of product I need to review. We're going to start with the QSC 12s. Okay, now I want to thank the sponsor of this video. That's Hollywood DJ. They were the only ones that when I called in my favor and I called in and spoke to Alan, you guys all know Alan, he's the owner of Hollywood DJ. I said, I need some KC12s. I need to test them out for my people. And without question, he was like, come get some. So because of him, I'm able to do this review. If you are looking for DJ gear, lighting, sound, high-end sound, low-end sound, low-end microphones, high-end microphones, anything and everything DJ related, if you're looking for it, they have it at Hollywood DJ. Their prices are competitive. Their customer service is through the roof. And of course, they have a local storefront. So if you guys are in Southern California, you can actually just drive over there and work out a deal and get the product that you've been waiting for. And it's not just QSC. You want some LDs? They got them. You want some RCFs? They got them. Pretty much anything and everything you need, they have. So please check them out. Go to the website in my description. Take a look at all the special prices they have, and you might find something you like. Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about the QSC KC12s. Now, I know a lot of people thought that I just didn't like the speakers. Now, I've had the pleasure of listening to them at several conventions. I've heard them at NAMM, I heard them at MEX, and while everybody was just salivating over the KC12s, I heard them. I thought they were good speakers. I thought that they were pretty much on par with every other 12-inch column array that has value to it. I'm not talking about every speaker, but like, you know, your LDs, your EVs, all those speakers, those 12-inch subs, they all kind of sound pretty much the same. So that's the only argument I was making. Like, look, science is science, and you're only going to be able to get so much out of a 12-inch sub. No matter how much you push it, it's just the math doesn't add up. But I never said they were bad speakers. So I have taken these guys out. I use them on a couple of events. I've now tested them against two speakers that I have in stock that I think, you know, are the closest to them. Before we get into my review, let's talk a little bit about what the KC12s offer. All right, so we have here a three-way loudspeaker system featuring a 12-inch subwoofer with two high excursion 4-inch mid-range drivers and a 1-inch high compression driver, combined with the proprietary QSC Leaf waveguide. It's an energy efficient Class D amplifier, 3,000 watts of total peak power. We'll talk about that in a minute. An innovative QSC Leaf waveguide provides defined uniform coverage, 145 degrees, and then a 35-degree vertical, an excellent throw. Then we have on the backside, two combo XLRs, mic line high Z, with the second channel being mic line, and then a 48-volt phantom power, which is very good. Independent assignable factory presets for each input, perfect for small events where two microphones are needed for different uses. Then we have our multifunction digital display. We've seen these on all of the QSC systems for control and selection of loudspeaker functions, including global parametric EQ, subwoofer level, preset, scenes, Bluetooth, delay, etc. We also have Bluetooth, featuring what they call true wireless stereo, which basically means once you sync up with one Bluetooth speaker, then you have a direct wireless connection to the other speaker. So you're going to get a non-latency sound coming out of the speakers. Now, of course, that only works with Bluetooth. If you try to put in your XLRs, it's not going to communicate to the other speaker. So let's just get that out of the way. Nobody's come up with a fix for that yet because I don't think it's possible. Configured with or without a column pole, the system is ideally suited for direct deployment on a floor, stage, or risers. Available in black and white finishes. We'll talk about that too. Includes a tote bag for transportation storage of the top unit and the column poles. Does not include a sub bag, which the ones I borrowed did have a sub bag in them. I think any column array speaker requires a sub bag, and that should just be a given. It should just come in the system. You're paying enough for them anyway. Just throw a bag in. Okay, now let's look at the specifications real quick. Okay, we're just gonna drop down. 12-inch cone, 4-inch cone, 1-inch compression driver, frequency response at -6 dBs, 45 hertz to 18.5 kilohertz, frequency range at -10. 40 hertz at 20, -6 dBs, 45 hertz to 18.5 kilohertz. And then the frequency range at -10 is 40 hertz to 20 kilohertz. All right. Normal coverage, 145, as we talked about, with a maximum SPL of 132 decibels at 1 meter. That is really loud. I'm not going to lie. That is really loud. Once again, we have our Class D 3000 watt amplifier. It's broken out 2000 watts to the sub, 1000 watts to the high. All right. We can skip all of this because we already talked about most of the things in here that matter. First things first, let's talk about design. I actually like the way these speakers look. When you put them next to like a Maui 44 or even a 28, they really do look aggressive. They're a clean look. The front grille is just smooth. It has a very professional look, and I can't complain about it. All the way up to the tops. You know, it's funny because as you can see here in this picture, comparatively speaking, they literally match right up with the Maui 44s. It's uncanny. The height is exactly the same. The height on the subs is the same. The height on the high is the same. It's not as deep as the Maui, or as wide, I should say, but they're pretty close in visuals, which was probably the first thing that struck me, because a 12-inch speaker to me doesn't need to be in a case that large. And you'll see later on when I actually compare it to the 28 G3s that the sound that's coming out of the 28 G3s is very close to what's coming out of the QSCs, and it is a super small footprint compared to the QSC. But neither here nor there. It's a design choice. There's nothing wrong with it. Visually speaking, it's a good looking speaker. I wanted to say one thing real quick. I think speaker companies need to get together and decide across the board what color white is. Because now I've gone through 3 different white speakers, and the only ones that are truly white are the LD44 G2s. Every other one is off-white. In some cases, with the QSCs, they're almost yellow compared to the white speakers over there. Like, it's weird. Now, of course, if you just had the speakers by themselves, you wouldn't think of that, maybe. But if I'm bringing the QSCs and I'm bringing a pure white Humpter booth, they're not going to line up quite like you'd like them to. Okay? Again, nothing wrong with the color, but we just need to maybe be a little bit more creative with our term for white. Maybe they should have called it, like, I don't know, eggshell, off the wall white. You know, something that says I'm a DJ. You know, I don't know. All I'm saying is that they're not white. They're off white. Again, not the end of the world. You know, we have a composite. It's part wood, it's part composite. So you're never going to get the colors exact. And I think they chose to go with a color that matches the plastic over what matches the wood. If you remember in my EV video, they decided to just have the colors just be different. So the wood is a white, but then the plastic comes off a little bit off white, and it's just the way it is. It looks like QSC opted to just match the color of the plastic with the wood. It's a design choice. I don't have a problem with it, but again, if you are really putting it up with an all white system, they do stick out a little bit. Now, one of the things they talked about was the efficiency of this amplifier. Specifically, it only requires a maximum, or I should say less than 2 amps on a given circuit, which is fantastic. That's an efficient sub. Now, in my testing, which wasn't scientific, I had an amp draw meter that I had run it through, and no matter how hard I pushed it, I could never get it under 2 amps. It typically ran around between 3 and 5. It jumped around there. So, we can say 3.5 just to be in the middle, but I never got it under 2 amps. Again, it could be just the device I was using, but I thought you should probably know that. Is that going to affect your ability to run a party? No, most people don't even know how much power is being pulled from the speakers. In all honesty, they just plug them in and turn them on. But in case you were like that, you needed to know you're in a space that has some issues with power. It's good to know what your system is going to provide or going to draw from that wall. Okay, let's take a listen, do a little sound test. I'm comparing them to the LD28G3s and the QSC KC12s. Let me know what you think. All right, we are now at the studio. We're gonna do a quick sound test. We're gonna be using the Maui 28G3s and of course the KC12s. Now, why am I using the Mauis and not something bigger? Well, because it is a 12-inch subwoofer coming out of that KC12, and the best comparison would be to use another 12-inch subwoofer. So let me show you what we're using as far as equipment is concerned. We have here 2 computers, and they are feeding in from the headphone jack here. I've run a pan on left and right. So that way, when the sound is coming out, I can flip to the next thing without having to change any more knobs. I can just flip it right then and there. I've gotten the balance to be pretty close. We're running right at about 0, kind of bleeding over the top a little bit. Do the same thing here. We're running at 0, and then every so often, we push over into +3. I did have to adjust the balance a little bit to get them to kind of work at 0. Obviously, when you're dealing with typically a higher class amplifier, it requires a little more power in order for it to get into that sweet spot. Okay, we're gonna start off with the G3s, and let me get the sound going right here. KC12. Back to LD. KC12. Maui first. KC12. Maui. KC12. let's go to the hip hop track. We're gonna start with the KC12s. Maui's, here come Maui's. KC12. Maui. All right, so I'm gonna get back to the studio, share my thoughts, but I wanna just quickly call out a couple of things that I have noticed just from being the LDs versus the KC12s. First of all, I will say this, the LDs really do hold their own. They are an impressive little speaker. The KC12s, they sound good. The thing that I've noticed though is you can see here, as far as the speakers are concerned, there's obviously some higher mids coming from the LDs than there are coming from the KC12s here. And now, there's a reason for that, obviously. You know, their decision on when they made their column array is a little different than what LD did. LD's is a true column array where there's speakers going from the top all the way down pretty much to the bottom, and then the sub is kind of shared with all of it. So you're gonna get more mids, you're gonna get more fullness, I guess, from just right off the bat. Now, the KC12s are more of a point source. So that means that the sub is getting all the bass, and then you have your three-way speaker up top funneling out the rest of it, giving you your highs, your mids, and then a little bit of low too. But there is a little bit of separation. Now, for some people, they're gonna love that sound. It's completely subjective. Some people hear things and are like, I love the clarity, I love the separation between the bass and the highs and the mids. And some people are gonna go, I like a fuller sound, and that's why it's good to compare. And the LD28s, they are definitely a fuller sound just right off the bat. Now, I'm gonna say, as far as the bass is concerned, it's putting out about the same amount of bass, okay? Right now I have the QSC on balanced, and then I have the KC12 at 12 o'clock. The audio is both at 12 o'clock for both of them, but there's no excess bass put in. You can put the KC12s on boost because there's like 3 different settings, a boost, a balanced, and then I think like a -1, -3, so on and so forth as far as the bass is concerned. As far as the highs are concerned, the highs are crisp, they're clear, they do sound really good. I think the highs are honestly the best part of the system. I think the sub is good. It has a really good low end, except for the fact that the KC12s, they don't go deep bass. They sit right above that deep bass line, and they project a really good bass. However, it can be a little misleading because when you're initially listening to it, the bass sounds so good, but that's just because it's operating at a higher registry. So you hear the bass more. You don't feel the bass more, but you hear the bass. Maui. It's not smoke and mirrors, it's a smart choice. They've decided to go just higher up on the frequency spectrum. Therefore, you get the interpretation of bass instead of the feeling of bass. You know, when I was using the Maui's, the 44s, and I was testing them at the pool party, and I said, oh, you know, the KC12s, they're holding their own. They sound really good, okay. I unplugged them and I plugged in the 44s, and I could hear that low end. KC12s do not have that low end whatsoever. They have a good mid bass. Any place I would use the LD28s, I would use the KC12s. Now, I know people are always gonna say, well, what's the number? What do you think? I definitely don't think it's 300. I don't think it comes anywhere near 300, to be honest with you. If you reinforce the speakers, okay? Meaning you bring in additional subs. Yeah, you're gonna be able to push out a much larger party, okay? But the argument here is that they can do 300 on their own, and I do not believe that whatsoever.
If you have two, you're going to easily hit between 300 and 500 people.
300 and 500 people.
Correct.
With full bass and everything on the dance floor.
Yeah.
It says 3,000 watts on the speaker. So people are like, 3,000 watts. That's amazing. That's going to be great. It's 3,000 watts peak. Nobody's running 3,000 watts peak. In reality, the whole system, my guess is probably running about 1,500 watts. Okay, that's just the facts. The continuous power is the thing we really want to see. We don't want to see peak because nobody's running peak. If you're running peak, that chances are you need to use a bigger speaker. Okay, that's just facts. So what I would say here is this. As far as the highs are concerned, you absolutely could throw another sub in there and it would do just fine. And I would say that these would not be my only speakers if I was like, oh, it's 350 people, 400 people. I'm not just bringing these and then 4 subs. I think you're going to run into problems that way. But just sound-wise, volume-wise, they do a really good job. The speakers are technically louder. They have 132 SPL. The 28s have a 127 SPL. So there is a big difference in between, but I just don't think that at higher volumes, I don't find the higher volume sound pleasing to my ears. It sounds just a little scratchy. Okay, you guys know what I'm talking about here. So I would probably take them down to like 75%. Full max, then drop it down to 75%. I think that's the level. I'm not talking about a cocktail party. I'm not talking about a boardroom meeting. I'm not talking about speeches, right? I'm talking about on the dance floor, dancing your butt off, bass is kicking, the sound is being pushed. How many people can you get on a dance floor? Anybody saying that I take these only on a 300 person party, 400 person party, I'm not saying that they are lying. I'm saying I question the quality of the sound on that party because you will be pushing these things to the max and there's 100% you're going to distort. As far as the sound is concerned, it's a really good sound. I think the QSC makes a really good speaker. It's a good speaker, bad marketing, okay? Good speaker, bad marketing. So if you're in line for something like this, just realize what you're buying. Like I said, it's always the right application for the speaker, okay? This is a really good speaker, and just like the LD is a really good speaker. When you're dealing with 12s, you can only get so loud. It's physics. You can't just make something out of nothing. But having the speaker in the frequency that it's in does a world of difference for the illusion of bass. You're getting bass, but it's just a different kind of bass. So in general, it's a good speaker. And if you're looking into it, obviously, I would recommend absolutely taking them out. I would recommend going to one of these conferences, going to a music store and listening for yourself. Also, the feet. Now, we know that there has been rumblings across the board from QSC purchasers where they're saying, my speakers move a lot. And I said, well, I haven't experienced that from a lot of other speakers out there. So then I got these in and I started playing them and I finally realized what they were talking about. These speakers do move, okay? Now I believe that there is a fix. You just have to email QSC and then they will kind of take you through the steps. My guess is they're gonna send you either new feet or feet that have been kind of sanded down a little bit to give you a little more abrasiveness so they catch onto a ground because they're very, very smooth feet. So what'd you think based upon what you heard there? Now, I know some people are gonna say you can't get a good test off a little ass microphone. We're not trying to give you perfect frequencies. We're trying to get you to hear just the difference in sound, okay? If you want to do a perfect test, go to one of the conferences, go to one of the stores, take a listen to them yourself. This is just for people that are interested in the sonic differences of the speakers. The one thing that I did notice is, like I said, compared to the LDs, you are lacking in some mids. Now, that doesn't mean that when you're out, that clarity is going to hit, it's going to sound good, but I don't know, when the music was bumping, I kind of favored a little bit more the mid section, although I favored the highs, the high frequencies more on the QSC. For some reason, LDs, their sound is really small and confined. It doesn't push out. It's the way they tune their speakers. A lot of people love the way the LDs sound, and I do too. But when you compare them to a speaker with like a dedicated high and it's really pushing out, the highs always sound brighter. The same thing happened with the EVs. The highs just sounded so bright compared to the LDs. I had a lot of people say, I prefer the LDs over the EVs. So your mileage may vary. I'm not here to tell you, what sounds better to your ears. You have to tell me. You figure it out yourself. But they're really good sounding speakers, and I think QSC has a really good product on their hands. All right, y'all. If you found what I said here useful, hit that like button. If you found what I said here really useful, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you follow me on Instagrams and Twitters. Get on my Discord because that's where we're talking about all things Cleveland Terry. Guys, girls, always a pleasure. If I don't talk to you later, we'll talk soon. Peace. Got my catchphrase on the first try. Who would have thought?